was the process like for you to get the job or get into the residency programs?
So basically, you take the USMLE, you pass the USMLE steps 1 and 2. And then in those days, when I did it in 2002, they had a clinical skills examination. They used to call it a CSA, clinical skills assessment. And you pass that. And once you've done the step 1, step 2, and CSA, and you've taken the TOEFL, a test of English as a foreign language, and you've passed all of those, then you can apply for residency. The good thing was that the match was already established. In fact, I was lucky that there was a match. ERAS, Electronic Residency Application Service, and match had already been in place because I know some of my friends who were 5 to 10 years ahead of me back in the 90s. There was no match. So they had to send their application individually to each and every US hospital along with all the documents. And that was a big struggle. But the match was already in place. And the good thing about the match was that you just have to send all your letters of recommendation and documentation to the ERAS. And then you just check a box and they send your letter. You just check a box. You tell them, send this letter of recommendation to this program, this one to this program, this one to this program. So it was already there, and that was a big help. And then ultimately, money is again a factor because applying to different residency programs, the more programs you're going to apply, the more money it's going to cost. So you have to be strategic about it. So what you really need to, there are a lot of things, even back then in 2002 when I was applying, what were the things that were going through my mind? So the thing is that you have to know which programs you have a good chance of matching. So it depends upon a lot of things. It depends upon the specialty that you're trying to match in. It depends upon the region in the US where you want to go and do the residency. It depends upon the competitiveness of the program where you are trying to match and the specialty. So there are a lot of things into consideration. So you get a good idea about which programs you have the better likelihood of matching. And that's how I apply. I applied to those programs which were a reasonable option for me, depending upon the specialty that I wanted to do and the region of the country that I wanted to live in. And so that's not a universal advice because that will be different for different people, depending upon what their specialty is and where they want to work and live.
Is the process still the same? Like you still have to just search for a residency program to be matched with?
Yeah, it's mostly the same. Of course, now we have many more residency programs as compared to when I did it because it was more than 20 years ago. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to also educate people that the US has been facing a shortage of physicians for a long time, because the rate at which our population in the US is growing is also not keeping pace with the number of doctors that are present in the community to take care of those patients. So basically, over the last couple of years, many states have come up with new laws that actually allow foreign or international medical graduates to be able to practice medicine in the US without even doing a residency. Now, this is not a carte blanche. There are some limitations. They may have to work in a supervised setting for a few years. They may have to work in a rural area for a few years. There are going to be some adjustments that are going to be required, but it is still a much better option because I know that there are many international medical graduates who really love and really want to practice in the US, but cannot do that because ultimately, unfortunately, they were unable to match in a residency program. And so one of the things that I think the new laws require is that you must have done some training, residency type training. What I'm talking about is some sort of clinical training after completing graduation from your medical college in your host country, but you may be able to come to the US and work as a doctor even without doing the residency. Now, in the US, the medical license that's given is actually given by every state. So there are 50 states and every state has its own medical license. So therefore, the requirements for the international medical graduates to practice are going to be different based upon which state they want to go and which state they want to practice in. And not all the states are offering this option right now, but the door has opened. And I think as time will go by, more and more states will join. So that's a very good piece of news for a lot of international medical graduates anywhere in the world. And I think whoever wants to take advantage of that, then they should really look forward towards it.
Where can they find this information?
So what you really need to do is that you can just put in the name of the US state and you can go to the state medical board website. Every state has a medical board. I practice in Texas, so there's a Texas medical board. And all you have to do is to go to that state's medical board website and look at their requirements. And then you can find if there are pathways that are offered to international doctors that don't require residency, and all of the criteria and everything is going to be there. Now they will require passing USMLE and everything else. So the only relaxation is you don't need to go through the residency, which is the biggest stumbling block for a lot of international graduates.
That's a good piece of news, because for a very long time I understand that it was very difficult for medical graduates to get into the residency program, even though they passed the USMLE.
Right. Yeah. That's why this is such a big piece of news. I mean, this is life changing, and it's a very big relief, and it is going to help not only the international graduates, but it's going to help our patients here in the U.S. too, because we do have a shortage of doctors, and um, one of the things that we look at is that we always talk about problems of developing countries, but I think a lot of problems that the developing countries have, the developed world is also faced with those problems, but the magnitude is different. So what I'm trying to say is that the growth of population is exceeding the growth of resources. Now, what's happening is that the growth of population in the developing countries is exceeding the growth of resources at a much larger scale. But again, the developed world, including the US, we also have the growth of population is exceeding the growth of resources, just not by that much in the developing world. So I think this foreign graduates coming here and practicing without residency is going to help a lot of patients in the US as well. So it's a win-win on both sides.
Join disruptive doctors. Oh.